I do think he was right though. But I look at kind of across the, I look across the college football landscape because I don't know how you look at some of the results we saw over the weekend and don't look at, hey, there's got to be more going on here than we realize. Otherwise, you don't have a team in UCLA that hasn't led a single second of a game this year go out and almost double their point total for the entire season and upset a top 10 team in the country, right? Like there's more than just, oh, hey, we got to go block and tackle people on Saturdays, by the way. Like there's a lot going on that goes into an upset like that, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe things that sometimes you can't quantify. I'm a numbers guy too, and obviously I love watching tape and watching the games. But there's stuff inside the locker room that, unless you're right there and part of it, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. So with UCLA, that's my best guess. Maybe there was either some cultural issue or maybe some scheme problems with the old staff. Maybe they weren't motivated as well. All those hidden points and hidden yards that you can't really quantify. Now, when they had a little coaching change, a scheme shift. Jerry Neuheisel really motivated these guys and must have schemed it up pretty well with only 2 days of prep. And you saw they looked completely different. I was thinking this was kind of an App State moment, one of the biggest upsets I can remember, just given the context of both of these two teams' seasons. I know it's not an FCS, FBS upset, but yeah, UCLA winless, hadn't led in any game. All the coordinators and head coach were fired. And then you got Penn State, who was picked top 10 in the preseason, top five, really everywhere. And yeah, 27-point favorites going down. So yeah, just a crazy week. Like we said this last time, this time last week, that these are the types of weeks that surprise you. I know it wasn't as big of a headliner Saturday, but these hidden games, that's where college football strikes when you least expect it.
So let me ask you something, Brett. I mean, gosh, you dig inside the numbers and super good with analytics. Do you find yourself sometimes, frustration probably isn't the word, but you kind of do have to pull back, or maybe you don't, from the data to factor in emotions or maybe newness of rosters or the varying degrees of coming off a loss versus a win. Or maybe you don't because over time you feel like that could distort the hard numbers. How do you balance the ebb and flow of what you're seeing versus what the numbers actually say?
That's a great question. And really, with the preview magazine, that's a 7-month battle within my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of a man versus machine type thing where like I have my numbers, my formulas, but then it's all the research I do. I mean, talking to coaches, coordinators, watching spring games, trying to dig through this transfer portal, like all that goes in, and it goes against kind of my raw data and the numbers because football is not just numbers. You got to learn the personnel, you got to learn everything they're trying to install. And I'll say this too: the transfer portal has really made it more difficult and more complex. A lot of times, you would look at a roster that changed over so much, and you'd say, "No way is that going to click in time." But now, if you look at it, the 7 teams that were the top 7 transfer teams this cycle, you got teams like Texas Tech and Oregon and Missouri. You add them up, I think they're 30-1 combined record right now, and not just straight up, but they're like 25-5 against the spread. So in normal seasons with so much changeover, you'd maybe not consider these transfer teams, but now they're the top teams.
Mm. Brett, as you kind of Texas is an interesting one because I think there's a lot of teams out here that are much heavier in the transfer portal than maybe we even realize. I don't know if Texas is one of those for most people or not. I know we look at like Ole Miss as a super heavy transfer portal team. They're doing well. Have you balanced at all the teams that are doing well in the transfer portal versus like what they were beforehand? And I guess what I mean by that is it a fact that the best programs that are already there are getting the best transfers, or are the transfers making them the best programs? Like, is it a chicken or an egg thing there?
Yeah, I think you have examples of both. I mean, an example one way is Oregon, where this has been one of the best programs for the last really generation, 10, 20 years, top 10 program. They're always in the national spotlight, great recruiting efforts from the high school ranks. So they had the baseline there. But with Dan Lanning, he's now putting them over the top with also top 5 transfers. So they had already the top 5 recruiting base, and now this is just adding fuel to the fire. So that's an example one way. Another way would be Texas Tech and Ole Miss. These are teams that within their conferences, or at least with Ole Miss is not going to go beat Alabama and Georgia on the high school recruiting trail. They're usually middle of the pack or below average in the SEC footprint in high school recruiting. but the transfer portal with Lane Kiffin has allowed them to neutralize that, bringing in number 1, number 2 classes from the transfer ranks every year. So, and Texas Tech, this is one where all that oil money came together. They were never a top 25 high school recruiter, signed the number 2 transfer haul in America, and now they're blowing everybody off the field. It's unbelievable how quickly that they were able to get that together. And to Damon's point too, you can sign all these players, but can you get it to gel that quickly in a couple months of off season?
McGuire is unfold in that regard.
Yeah, I talked to a couple of Big 12 coaches about some scouting of opponents, and they all brought up Texas Tech's talent, but they all had that same question in the offseason. Can it gel quick enough? What's that going to look like? And so far, so good. I mean, credit Joey McGuire and his staff. They got them playing together. They look incredible.
So it's interesting, as a numbers guru like yourself, how do you pit a Cignetti who is very different in his outward delivery in terms of what it takes to win football games versus a guy like McGuire, who's a little more all shucksy, a little more relational still, even though they are spending money. Two guys that do it virtually polar opposite ways in terms of their what they give you behind the mic, but both guys that have revamped rosters in a hurry. How do you kind of coexist in that juxtaposed position?
Yeah, well, with college football, there's so many different ways to arrive at a winning record. But I think with Indiana, when you watch them play, they're just so clean. Everything they do is so clean. They never make mistakes that hurt themselves. Both sides of the ball in unison, plus the special teams with block punts and returns. Just like I guess I would call them just incredibly well coached and just process driven. And then with Texas Tech, I will say it is still early into this new this transfer haul they've gotten, but so far so good, 5-0, even 5-0 against the spread. If you're looking at that, all 5 wins by 24 plus points, 200 plus yardage in every single game, unbelievable, off the charts. I'll say it's so early yet with Texas Tech. I want to see them more into the Big 12 schedule, but even the years prior to this transfer haul, he had them playing well. And Texas Tech, they beat Oklahoma and Texas in the same season for the first time ever. I think it was his debut season. So, yeah, he's had him playing really well and more of that Texas culture. He's a high school state champion coach from down there. So he's like Mr. Texas football and really fits down there. I'm actually going to go down to a game in Lubbock and check that out. And I want to see a game over at Ratliff Stadium, Permian High School, from, of course, Friday Night Lights. So that's coming up in November. But, yeah, I think they're both very different strategies, like you said, but whatever it works within your own culture, and it's working for both of them.
Yeah, but played there twice in my career, and unapologetically was hit with a few soft-shell tortillas, and had to duck a horse that was dressed like Zorro. So be careful down there in Lubbock. Let me ask you something, B. I'm on a roll. Don't mind me. Of the buts, because I think all three of these coaches kind of get a but, whether it's records in big games, clock management, whatever, right? They win, but I don't know if it's enough according to the fan base. Who gets the most grace? Lane Kiffin in Ole Miss, Mario Cristobal in Miami, or Dan Lanning in Oregon? 3 teams that are going to be right there near what they're doing, but all get the ...
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that all 3 fan bases are excited about what they've got. I think with Oregon, the fans up there, and I don't want to speak for fans, but this is my outsider perspective. I think from Oregon, I think they're really excited about the talent level that they're recruiting and signing from the transfer portal, really turning this into like an NFL machine. I think that's got to impress these Oregon fans, and knowing the gauntlet they have to go through in the Big Ten and the playoff coming up, this expanded playoff, that's the way to do it for them, is the recruiting angle. So I think they're excited up there. Same deal with Ole Miss. I think the way that he's been able to pull in transfers. Now, this one might be a little bit of the hardest pressure because with NIL, as you guys know, it's a lot of fan support and local company support. They're putting their dollars out there more explicitly than ever. So if these transfers don't get them an SEC title or get them close to that, maybe they're a little bit more angry than these other places. So maybe Ole Miss is a little bit tougher on Kiffin. And the last one with Mario Cristobal, he's an alum. He's got them playing better football than they have in, 10, 20 years. I'm born in the 90s. I never really got to see Miami as the dynasty that they were in the 80s and 90s. So this is the closest that I've seen yet. I mean, they look fast. They look big. They're playing well on both sides of the ball now. They've got it in unison. So I think at Miami, with their alum as their head coach, I know he blew some games a couple years back, but he's got them in a better shape than I've ever seen in my life.
Brett, when you look at, and I gotta bring Miami up in this one as we're talking about Mario Cristobal. I do think there are people, myself included, that look at that team and say, hey, that might be the most complete team in college football. I do think Cristobal is the one thing I don't know about.
I said that. I don't know who else
I agree. I agree. And I don't know if that's the one thing I don't know about for Miami is Cristobal, even if we think he's grown from some of his mistakes in past years that have cost his team games. We haven't really seen him in a super high level championship kind of quality position. Who else out there, whether it's Oregon, whether it's Ohio State, who else out there that you look at and you go, hey, I like a lot of the things that are happening here, but there's a red flag or two that I'm totally not sure about?
Yeah. That's a great question. Looking at this SEC, you have a lot. I mean, there's so many
If
teams.
you don't give one, I got one for you, but I'll let you shoot your shot here. I got a good one for you.
Well, I'll go to the SEC. I see a lot of teams that could compete for national titles this year. Maybe just unproven in a couple spots. I mean, Oklahoma, I really love their defense. We'll start there. Could be one of the best defensive fronts in the country. I do have a question with their offense. They're not able to grind out as easy of yards as some of the other teams in the conference. John Mateer's hand injury. We'll see how that looks Saturday. They're positive he's going to play. We'll see. So that's maybe a national title contender there. Texas A&M is close to me. They're really rounding into form nicely. Ole Miss, I want to see more from their defense. Trinidad Chambliss has been incredible on offense. So, yeah, a couple of teams like that have proven it on one side of the ball. I want to see more from the other half. Texas Tech, we talked about, really a machine right now. And that pretty much covers it for me. Damon, what were you going to go with?
Texas A&M. I think Reed has played better than most thought, and he's been pretty efficient. Texas A&M is one of those teams, I think, for even the ranking, flies under the national discussion because they're a victim of their own lack of success, but kind of hype that surrounds the program.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you know what? They grew up a lot as a program this Saturday. They were, I think it was 3-0 for most of that first half. They were down. It was a snoozer, maybe a little hangover spot there, and you thought, okay, here goes A&M again. They have their big September, and then they collapse in October, November. It was right on script. But then at halftime, they really woke up. They played excellent football second half to pull away. They ended up winning 31-9. Marcel Reed, and here's a stretch maybe, but you know who he reminds me of playing style wise? Dennis Dixon at Oregon about 10, 15 years ago. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh, I love Dixon.
Very similar playing style.
Former Steeler, Dennis Dixon.
Yeah. He's so Marcel Reed's really impressing me. And their two transfer receivers have really broken open the offense. That's been great for them. Casey Concepcion, punt returner and receiver, and then Mario Craver. So I really like what they have with A&M. I'd like their offensive line coming into the season, giving Reed a lot of time back there. And then you got an Elko defense. So I agree with you. They might not get the headlines of like a Texas with Arch and then the Bama Georgia guys, but A&M is right there, and their schedule's favorable if you look ahead a little bit. Yeah. So they could really, really make a playoff push. I think they're going to do it this year.
So let me ask you about Texas A&M here. Could I make the case to you that they might be a little fraudulent? Because I'm looking at their results. Like, okay, UTSA, that's fine. Utah State, that's fine. Notre Dame, that's a 1-point win. Auburn, that's not a super, like, it didn't look great, the 16-10. I don't know what Mississippi State is yet. As you said, the schedule is reasonably favorable. They go at LSU and at Missouri, but that's about it in terms of really difficult games. Although, who knows, maybe Florida decided to play football again. I guess we'll see that this weekend. But, like, is there any party that goes, for what we've seen results-wise, or are the Notre Dame and Auburn wins enough for you?
Yeah, the Notre Dame was impressive. Now, that was in South Bend. And I still think Notre Dame, I know that resume-wise, they don't deserve it, but I still think they're a top 15 caliber team in terms of talent and coaching. So I think that's a quality win. I know it came down to a 2-pointer, but I'm still impressed. The Auburn game, I know, was just 6 points, but it really was a lot more dominant than that. They outgained them by 250 yards, which is a huge margin in the yardage game. And then Mississippi State, we talked about it. This was a tough spot coming off the Auburn win, maybe a little hangover spot, looking ahead a little bit to Florida. But they woke up in the second half. No, I'm impressed with them. And here's why. It's both sides of the ball coming together at the same time. A lot of these teams we talked about, one side of the ball looks elite, the other one has questions. I think that with Marcel Reed's development, plus a second season with Mike Elko on defense, their head coach, and a great defensive mind, I think it's all coming together. Now, we'll see how this clip holds up in 7 days, but that's just how it is in college football. But through 5 games, I'm impressed, and I think they have a good shot at it.
I'm going to go back to the SEC just for a second because I want to go through a couple of minutes here, some truth serum. Of the tell-all 2.5s, right, games that are the line is less than the key number of 3. Bama goes to Columbia, and Oklahoma goes to Austin. Schedules down the road excluded. Which game will tell you more about which team is where?
I think we'll learn more about Oklahoma here. I think it's a huge test for them. It's a rival. That stadium's going to be half and half right down the middle, one of the coolest sights you can see. And it's all about John Mateer. I know I talked about it earlier, but to rehash, I mean, he's coming back from his hand surgery, and the original timeline was 3 to 5 weeks. The front end of that timeline would be Saturday. That's 3 weeks. So if he went as quickly as possible in rehab and comes out with no rust on him, then he's ready to go Saturday. We'll see. But they're a completely different team with and without John Mateer. Without him, they have Hawkins, a former starter from last year, and the offense did not look as smooth and solid as it did. They were playing Kent State, who's probably the worst FBS team in the country, but you could tell a marked difference with him versus Mateer. So they need to have Mateer back and healthy, and he's got to get ready to roll right away against a great Texas defense. DJ Lagway had some success on this Texas D, and I want to see if Oklahoma can match. One area I don't like Oklahoma as much is at receiver. I don't know if they have the kind of playmakers that Florida and Ohio State used against the Texas defense to their success. So that's a question for me. I do love their defense. Anyway, I think we're going to learn a lot about Oklahoma Saturday.
All right, let's go to the Big Ten. And I shouldn't have left them off the less than a key number because it's 2.5 as Michigan travels to Los Angeles. But I'll give you 2 games there. Indiana catching a fairly good number from Oregon, I think 7 in the hook, or Michigan traveling to Los Angeles. Which, if we're taking the truth serum, which will you learn more about?
I think we'll learn more about Indiana. I say that because I think I kind of know about Michigan. I think we know what we have there. They have a great offensive line and defensive line. Their trenches are strong.
Is the wrong team favored?
I think so. I think I would pick Michigan here. Yeah, I'll pick Michigan here. Yeah, and you know why? It's USC when they played Illinois. That's kind of the type of game I think you're going to see with Michigan. Illinois ran right at them. There was no gadget plays. There was no really vertical passing. It was just right between the tackles, and USC couldn't stop it. And I think with Michigan, you have a better Illinois. I think it's just Illinois 2.0 with a 5-star number 1 recruited quarterback that's getting better every week. So I think Michigan is going to go in there and win. I think they're the better team. And then your other question, Indiana, I think we learn more. So anyway, I think I know what we have with Michigan, like I described, but with Indiana, this is a huge test, and they tend to prove us wrong. So I'll be shocked if they go up there and win, but that's all Curt Cignetti does recently. So, but anyway, I think we'll learn more with Indiana. This is their toughest game of the year by far so far. I know they smacked Illinois by 53 points. This is a whole different caliber of roster they're going against. This is like an NFL. NFL combine team they're going up against with Oregon. So I'm going to learn more from that game.
It's so unfair, but it's kind of the pulse of what's going on in college football, and especially with the fan base and media coverage. Fair or unfair that Cignetti could ultimately be criticized or characterized by his success against Oregon because last year it was,
Ohio State,
the good teams they played, they lost to.
Yeah.
He's got another opportunity for an upset here, but it is Indiana, and the turnaround has been immediate. Fair or unfair to start to build a narrative around Cignetti post this game?
Well, it's so hard for me because I look at the program context of what he took over to Indiana, and you guys know this. This is really the punching bag of the Big Ten for generations. I think the all-time leader in losses in games in college football history. Like this is, I can't believe how quickly he turned it around. It could be one of the best coaching jobs we've ever seen, actually. So just to even have them in these discussions, I think is a major win. That's no moral victory type talk. I just really believe it. I mean, this was one of the worst teams in the country for several seasons. So anyway, but he's got two measuring stick games here. You're right. The Oregon game and the Penn State game, although that one lost a little bit of luster, it's still a measuring stick. So they got to go and win one of them. I think you got to win either Oregon or Penn State to get that resume strong enough for a playoff spot. Remember, their non-conference was really soft. That's their strategy in the non-con. So you got to go 1-1 in these big ones, and this is one of them. So yeah, it's definitely a measuring stick game. They came up small against Ohio State last year, out physical at Notre Dame last year, despite that final score. So yeah, you're right. It's a measuring stick spot, and I've seen less bravado from him this week. It seems more complimentary. He was saying how proud he is of Dan Lanning, how good Dan Lanning is. So a little
He
bit
picks
different
his
tone.
spots, doesn't he? He was very
Yeah,
contrite pre-Iowa because I think he knew,
Mhm.
even though he did take the shot at, well, they're certainly better than the team we played last. But he was not overly effusive against Iowa, and he's been very buttoned up against Oregon too. He's no dummy. He's no dummy. He
he
typically,
knows. Yeah,
yeah, he knows.
We also like to call
he knows that quote's going right up on the locker room wall if he says something negative. That's what, especially at Oregon.
Yeah, Lanning doesn't mess around with that. We found that out with Prime a couple years ago.
Yeah.
My question, I guess, for you about Indiana, and I know this isn't as like in your wheelhouse kind of analytics wise as some of the other stuff we talk about is, but do you think there's a certain degree of he's a victim of his own success or his own bravado? Because while we'll make the distinction that, well, he's less kind of beating his chest against Oregon than he is against Illinois because he knows better. Like, I don't know if nationally that's the perception. It seems like we all just think like, oh, Cignetti talks all the time. Like, can you be the guy that beats your chest and then say, hey, like, Google me, I win, but then also be like, yeah, but not against these teams. I mean, not those teams are really good. Like, I'll beat my chest against these guys over. Like, I don't know if you can have it both ways.
We'll see.
That's a good point. Yeah, you build up your character the one way. That's pretty funny, actually. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and you're right about that. With the national viewer, they kind of just know like 10 seconds about every team. So like when they hear
Yeah.
Indiana, they just think the Cignetti bravado stuff. That's kind of the extent of it. Same with, and I'm sure you're sick of hearing it, but like the average college football fan, all they think about with Nebraska is the Mahomes thing at quarterback. Like it's very like, there's so many teams and the average fan doesn't dive into it as much, so that they know like one thing about every program. And right now with Indiana, it's the Cignetti trash talk angle, and there's so much more to Indiana's rebuilding than that. That's just the kind of the headliner, but like they're playing really crisp football on both sides of the ball. Fernando Mendoza, perfect at quarterback, #1 in the country in QB rating, and probably atop the Heisman odds as well. So there's a lot more to it with Indiana. Great coordinators, but yeah, you're right. That's what the average fan knows about them right now.
Last one from me. This, for as much as this game could fly under the radar for what they are as programs, how important is 6:30 on ABC at Jordan Hare for the SEC's perception?
Yeah, well, for the SEC's perception, I don't know too much. I think that won't move the needle on a conference level. But for Auburn, I mean, Hugh Freeze has to start winning some games. I mean, he's had some opportunities. He's been close. A touchdown against Oklahoma, a touchdown against A&M. That only holds up so long. You have to start winning these close games. And you look at that spread; it's sneaky. It comes in around a field goal. That caught my eye. And, on a yardage perspective, Auburn's pretty good. It's just the points. They can't convert their yards into points. Red zone problems, kicking problems. They were dead last in the country in field goal kicking last year. And that might sound stupid, but, 3 or 6 points a game, that would have flipped a lot of results. So Hugh Freeze needs to find a way to go win a game. And speaking of finding ways to win, I got to sneak this in real quick. I'm proud of Nebraska guys that they really found a will to win there. I feel like some of the teams in the past decade or so would not have pulled that off after the 21-14 deficit. Just the fortitude to rally from there. And also, guys, special teams. I've been critical of Nebraska special teams for so long, but here it was as a total asset. Blocked a punt for a touchdown, got about a 60-yard kick return at one point, a muffed kick on the other side. Usually that's going the other way. So I was really impressed with Nebraska. Wasn't the best day offensively, but it just did enough to win. Now, get ready for Maryland. They're sneaky over there. They took Washington down in the fourth quarter late, had a 20-0 lead. We'll see, but I like Nebraska going into College Park. But I had to sneak that in there. I know we talked a lot. I had got to get a little Nebraska flavor in there.
Hey, so I fibbed because you've only given us 30 minutes. So, I mean, bud, shame on you. No hyperbole. Give me kind of how bad does DeBoer in Alabama need to win this game in Columbia long term? It's
I
just 2.5.
Yeah, it's a huge spot. I mean, that's just another week in the SEC, right? They go out, they beat Georgia, then they have to play a ranked Vanderbilt and win that one, and then you got to go on the road in Missouri's biggest home game in a decade, College Game Day in Columbia. Yeah, it's just another week over
I'm
there.
telling you quietly, that Missouri crowd will be ready.
Oh, they're nasty.
They're nasty
Missouri's
down
nasty.
there. Don't sleep on Columbia.
They're like 90s
sure.
Colorado light in Columbia.
Oh man, I don't want any projectiles from the stands from them. No laser beams.
Hey, listen,
Colorado away.
Hey, I'm telling you, they're really
nasty
good
out
front
there.
runners, and they're kind of mean spirited. It won't be friendly down there.
Yeah, and you're right about DeBoer. He needs this one, and he earned back a lot of trust from fans with the way they responded from the Florida State loss. Built up some goodwill again with the Georgia and Vanderbilt wins. He could lose it all again. That's how tough it is in Tuscaloosa. Like he could lose all that goodwill with a loss this week. I know it's a tough spread and a tough team, but that's just how the SEC works. So I have them as the favorite right now to win the SEC, but that could shift so quickly in this conference. So they better be ready. Missouri's one of those transfer teams. Really dynamic both sides of the
Physical
ball.
run game too.
Yeah, the nation's leading rusher with Hardy, and he's tough to bring down. You watch them play, and the other guy too. I forget his name off the top of my head. Both those running backs, they are so physical. They truck you. So they better wake up and be ready after this Vanderbilt game. No hangover here. If they do, they're going to lose. But I think Alabama goes in and wins it.
That is our friend Brett Ciancia from Pick Six Previews. Brett, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.